So apparently the Moonswatch is a thing. It's not a thing I ever expected to see. It's certainly nothing I ever expected to say. It's a delightful thing, a wonderful thing, an exhilarating and exciting thing. I'm so happy not only that the Moonswatch exists, but with the individual implementations. I think it's fantastic. And I'm not alone. There's a lot of you and a lot of other people like me, a lot of YouTubers who are going very over the moon about this. There's a lot that aren't too. So let's talk about this and talk about what this watch means. Hi, Edit Sweet Pete, getting in earlier than I ever have before. Okay, so in setting up for the video you're about to watch, I bought a new microphone, I bought a new audio setup, a lot of new cabling, and I spent so much time focusing on that I must have screwed up something in the focusing system of the camera. So it's naturally focused entirely on painting my granddaughter gave to me. I was going to reshoot the whole thing, except I was really happy with what I said. And for me, what I say, my thoughts are more important than anything else. So rather than jinx it, I'm just going to keep with that and just apologize. The video's not that great. I'll put as many good pictures as I can up of the Moonswatch and you won't have to deal with it. I'm sorry, but yeah, that's the way it is. Anyway. Okay, some quick details so that we're all on the same page. What the hell is a Moonswatch? It is a swatch styled after an Omega Moonwatch, a Speedmaster Professional. This watch looks exactly like, or much like, a Speedmaster Moonwatch would, except it's made of plastic, or it's a bioengineered mix of ceramic and plastic. It's a plastic watch, that's okay. It's got an ETA quartz movement inside. It comes in 11 different colorways, each modeled either after the way a planetary body would look, or the way it makes us feel when we see it. So that's where the colorways came from. This watch is clearly branded as a Swatch, but trumpets its Omega connections. Big difference is if you wanted to buy the original Omega version of this watch, you're looking at shelling out 9,000 to 10,000 Australian dollars. If you're looking at buying one of these, it's 380. Put it another way, you could buy all 11 of these colorways and still, I think, be less than halfway to a single Moonwatch. So let's get this out of the way. It is a super attractive watch. You're starting with a Speedmaster, one of the most classically handsome watches going around. So you'd have to work pretty hard to screw that up. They haven't screwed it up. They've given it a bunch of colorways, as I say, kind of inspired by the planetary bodies they're named after, and the colorways are good. They're really solid. Combine all of that with a decent name with Swatch, little bit of leaning on historical legacies with Omega, give it a price of around about 380 Australian dollars, plus or minus around the world, wherever you are. And this is a really compelling watch. It does make it really hard to see if I'm spending like $400. Why would I buy a micro brand when this is available? But we'll come back to that. That's actually a really interesting point. But anyway, that's pretty much all I'm going to say about the watches. And if you want to know more about the watches, there's 1,000,001 other channels covering that. You can go see those. Before I go on, one thing I would say, I think my favorite is the white and red Mars, but I'm quite partial to the Pluto version as well. So anyway, if you've watched much of my channel, you'll know I'm as much, if not more, into what a watch means, what it says about you, the wearer, the people that don't buy it, the company that's selling it, the industry it's made in, as the watch itself. So, you know what? Lots of other people are talking about the watch. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about what I think this watch means, because I think this watch says an enormous amount. Okay, so the first thing this watch says to me is that the team is more important than the individual player. More specifically, the group is more important than any individual brand. Even more specifically, Swatch Group is more important than Omega as a Swatch brand. What this tells me is that Swatch is getting serious about making the players on its team work together. It's quite common in watch circles for people to bemoan the negative effects that groups have on brands. I was one of those, but I'm increasingly coming to the completely opposite view, that what groups do is they give brands a sense of comfort so that they don't have to strive the same way as an independent brand does. An independent brand has only one way of making money, that brand selling watches. Therefore, they focus on that. In a group, individual brands can kind of shift blame around. Not my fault, some other brand making the money. My view is I don't think groups are demanding enough of their brands, and I don't think that the groups are making the brands work together in a cohesive team to achieve the best outcome for the groups. This is actually sort of backed up, I think, by some of the more recent Morgan Stanley results on who's selling what out of the Swiss watch industry. I think that this watch shows that Swatch has learnt that lesson, and whether the individual brands like it or not, they are going to play as a team so that the Swatch group makes the most money. That's going to be really interesting to sort of figure out in the future. Is that the best thing for the individual brands? I think it's going to take a while to work that out. But right now, my view is if it means that we get more watches like this, bring it on. Okay, so the second thing this tells me is that Swatch Group is going to get really serious about backing the exact parts of the industry, or at least within its group, that are falling apart, and that is the entry-level Swiss watch. I've already spoken about this a little bit before. I did a video on how I was surprised that Swatch was giving Tissot so much airtime in being able to sponsor NBA or being able to sponsor the Tour de France. Events and sports which I think have a much higher profile than an entry-level watch would normally warrant. Likewise, they give Hamilton, another entry-level brand, a huge license to go off and sort of impose themselves into pop culture, games and movies, etc. Again, in a way I would have thought Swatch would want their higher end stuff to do. Now, I think they've made it clear by suborning Omega to the Swatch brand. The Swatch Group has made it absolutely clear that A, it thinks that there is a future in that entry-level area, and B, they are going to own whatever's there. Money is going to still come into entry-level Swiss watch segment, and Swatch Group has made it clear they want all of it. If I was a brand competing against Swatch in that area, I'd be very concerned about now. Okay, the third thing that this tells me is that the Swatch Group, and probably by extension the Omega brand, is really playing the long game here. Tell you a story. I was listening to a podcast a couple of days ago. I can't remember what it was. Casual Watch Review, 40 and 22 Broke Watch Snobs. Cannot remember, but they're the three I've listened to in the last couple of days. Anyway, on that, they were talking about how much they love the Atom Project, this vehicle where it's kind of got a guy who travels back in time to see himself as a child, and they meet up with their father. And joining those people together, the time traveler as a boy and his son, and then their father, is a watch. It's an Omega Speedmaster, and it's used in quite an interesting way to bind these three people together. And it's a really clever moment, and the watch is well shown, and it's beautifully done. I think flippantly, one of the presenters on the podcast said, great, except there's only one clearly massive plot hole. No one's going to let their 12-year-old kid run around with their $6,000 Omega Speedmaster. This watch lets them do that. Now, I know it's not the same watch, etc. It's not an actual Speedmaster. But this is a watch that allows 10, 12, 14, 15-year-olds to be on the path to being a Speedmaster owner. It's funny, you listen to so many interviews and so many critiques of how people got into watches and what shaped their collection today. And it's so often people will go back to what their fathers had and passed to them, what they remember their fathers having, or what they had and the progression from there. In a world where there are some brands which at the moment dominate that sphere because the people that collect those brands now constantly reference, I remember when my father had this watch and he got this watch for this event, or I got this watch when I graduated. Those brands are now unattainable. Those brands you cannot get. People are not getting them when they graduate, when they leave high school, when they, get on the, football team for the first time. They're just not yours anymore. I think Omega is seeing an opportunity. The 14, 15, 18-year-old that gets this watch today gets a $400 bioceramic, i.e. plastic quartz Speedmaster, and loves it and wears it and maybe buys another couple in a different colorway. When they're 40, when they're 45, 20, 25, 30 years from now, that's the watch that's going to be in their mind. That's the one that says, you know what, now I'm in a place to spend $9,000, $10,000, $20,000, which it might be in 20 years' time, on the real thing. I think this is a sign that, as I say, Swatch and Omega, they're playing the long game here about where can we be, not next quarter, not next year, not even in 5 years' time. Where can we be in 20 years' time? And yeah, I might not even be here to watch it, but it's going to be interesting. My fourth point is whether you like it or not, Omega, and whether Omega likes it or not, they've been told and they are embracing what I'm going to call the idea of inclusive luxury, or if you don't like inclusive and exclusive, think of it as intrinsic versus extrinsic luxury. If you think of intrinsic luxury, that means it is something about the product itself that makes you feel good. Extrinsic luxury means it's not so much the product, it's the relationship of that product with the outside world. You having something that others don't, but they want, makes it luxurious. For a lot of people, when they think luxury, they think extrinsic luxury, or they think exclusive luxury. This is made a luxury because I have something other people don't want. Omega and a lot of other brands, Breitling's been doing it now for about 4 or 5 years, and there's a few other brands going the same way as well. They're embracing the idea of intrinsic or inclusive luxury. It is inward looking. This is a luxury item not because I've got behind the velvet rope, not because I've jumped the queue. This is luxury because it just makes me feel good. And I don't care what other people want, what other people are doing. This is just for me. And that it's just for me is where the real luxury is. Omega are embracing that idea. Now, here's the interesting thing. What I found when I ran a poll on my website, on my community tab on this channel, asking you, where did you feel luxury sit? Inclusive versus exclusive, intrinsic versus extrinsic. And I was a little surprised. 22% of you felt that exclusivity, that extrinsic luxury was true luxury. Only 22%, 78%, almost 4 out of 5 of you thought that luxury was really that intrinsic stuff. It was the stuff that it just made me feel good. That was luxury. So I think that's where Omega, unlike a number of other brands that are going hard on the exclusivity, they're seeing themselves aiming for the 80% of people that feel the way I and a whole bunch of others do. There are some interesting products of that. promoting inclusivity, promoting an individual awareness of what makes you special and what makes you happy, and you buying the thing that is great for you is a terrible way of becoming the single biggest watch brand in the world. To become the single biggest watch brand in the world, really you have to be aiming for exclusivity and everyone wanting the same thing. And it's important that you encourage everyone to want the same thing. If lots of people want lots of different things, you're kind of screwed. So what this tells me is we really need to stop all Omega comparisons to the big player in the room that wears a crown. That's just not going to happen. That comparison is out the window. Omega following this path cannot. There's just structurally impossible for them to grow to match that side of the industry. I did a video talking about how Omega could grab the throne if they wanted to, but I did highlight if they wanted to. This watch makes it very clear. Swatch doesn't want Omega to grab that crown, doesn't want Omega on the throne as the single biggest watch brand in the world. And why would Swatch be happy with that? I'll go back to the first point I raised. Because the team is bigger than the individual. The group is more important than the brand, and Swatch Group is more important than Omega. That this watch is all about Swatch Group being the best it can be. And if that means Omega's got to carry some water for Swatch the brand, then that's what it's going to be. Now, some of you, about 1 in 5 of you, is going to think that is horrendous, that is terrible, that is awful. I think that for 4 in 5 of us, this is the dawn of some really exciting stuff. And we should be embracing this and running out and doing everything we can to make as many watch companies know that we're really happy to see this. I certainly am. Fascinated to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. I've been Pete McConville. This has been Not So Obvious Watches. You might have noticed I've bought myself a new microphone. They tell me I don't need a pop filter on this. We will see what we will see when I do the edit. Hopefully it's okay and I don't have to completely reshoot this video. Anyway, I'll see you later. Bye.